Whoa, whoa, whoa. Holy moly. It is October 3rd. Wow, we're already in quarter 4 of 2023. Can you believe it? And it's 7 o'clock. Welcome to the show. My name is Joey Ragona. We are in Heart Centered Marketing right now. This is the show that we talk about all kinds of great things having to do with heart centered marketing, doing things the right way, as in our opinion, right? The stuff that we believe should be done outside of all the pressure and noise and all that kind of stuff. But, hi, Parmees. Just wanted to say hi. Thanks for
Oh,
being here again for another Epic Tuesday. I can't wait for today's discussion. How's your day?
it's been good. It's been a productive day, lots of answering questions. And I think what we're going to talk about tonight is essentially going to sum up all my discussions from today. So it's good.
I know you have like so many discussions, I think, as I do. I don't have as many as you do, but wow, like you're having a lot of discussions. And like the topics that we could pull from just your conversations alone could probably set us for at least to the end of the year, if not longer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so great. I'm glad that we're going to be talking about all kinds of stuff here. And by the way, if you're here, let us know, hashtag live or hashtag replay if you're watching the replay, by the way. And it is tonight is a hot topic. And speaking about hot, you're in Ottawa, right? Are you still in Ottawa?
Yep.
What's the weather like over there?
Oh, I mean, I went out for a walk in tank tops and shorts today. I'm trying to absorb all the vitamin D that I possibly can before we go into hibernation. So yeah, I know the heat wave around this time of year is a little bit problematic or concerning, but I'm gonna use it up.
It's crazy. I was just
Yeah.
enjoying like you soaking it up in the last couple of days. I just love this time of year. I love the
Yeah.
fall change, but then you get these major heat waves. And
Yeah.
yeah, I was looking at my wife yesterday and said, "Should we turn the air on?" She's like, "For like a day." I'm like,
Yeah.
maybe not." And then today, like in the house right now, is like 26 degrees in the house. I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh my god!" But
Yeah. It's
I'm
hot.
not gonna complain. It's just
It's
epic.
It's fine because we know we have about 8 months of tundra coming, so
Yeah.
it's fine. We'll enjoy.
Oh man. Oh man. Okay. Um, let's talk about today. The topic of discussion today. What are we talking about? I know that you brought this up, and I said, "Yeah, let's go for it." So I'll let you
Yeah.
introduce it.
Sure. So I think this topic can go in various different discussions as they or directions as they usually do with the two of us. But one of the things that has been coming up for my clients and one of the things that I've kind of felt fired up to talk about, especially over the last couple of weeks, is this idea of selling without selling. And the way that I describe it is building up enough rapport and traction and um, giving yourself a platform to be able to discuss the things that are within your scope of expertise to the point where people naturally feel drawn to working with you without feeling like you need to be very pushy or feel like you have to put yourself into these boxes of what traditional sales have taught us to do in order to get the sale. So, one of the things that my clients have come to me for specifically, and I can probably name off my two hands how many clients have come to me saying that the reason why I want to work with you is this, is
Mm-hmm.
that in my content and in my presence, there's very little times that I'm using very traditional calls to action or sales tactics or following launch formulas that really kind of get people not get people, but really kind of like push the sale
Yep.
or demonstrate why this is the program that you want to get into right now. And if you don't right now, you're missing out. And I've kind of been known for this idea of what I call intuitive calls to action, where people just naturally feel like they want to experience my work without me even having to spill out the details of what my work actually encompasses, what my program is, what the investment is, what's the time frame, not needing to go into those details or not needing to use extrinsic sales motivators like countdown timers and
Yep.
bonuses. I've seen fast action bonuses, like if sign up within 3 hours of a webinar, you get unlock a call. Like I haven't needed to incentivize my audience to want to sign up with me. And so one of the reasons why I want to talk about this tonight is not necessarily because I think that calls to action or selling is bad, which
Yep.
is what that's the big criticism I receive for my style is people say, well, you're kind of giving up this idea that selling is wrong or selling is bad. So I want to address that, and that's not necessarily the case, but I do want to illuminate that there are ways that you can build up desire for your programs or build up desire for from the right people to want to actually experience you without needing to twist their arm and tell them that this is the thing that you need right now. So
Yeah.
that's kind of my to this tonight.
I love this topic. I've talked about this for many, many years and actually built pillars around this. Pillar number two, you'll hear me say this again and again and again, but pillar number two for me is serve, don't sell. That's part of
Yeah.
that's the number two pillar of how do I bring people into my world and what do I do and how do we get to success, right? By the way, I don't know who this is. Hi, whoever this is. If you're watching from the Facebook group, if you can just give us permission to see your name, just hit on the little link. Hopefully it's there. I'd love to give you props on who this is, but hi, welcome to the show. Where was I going to go with this? There was one thing that you, yeah, my ADD is already kicking in. So because
Oh, good.
there's so many things that I want to talk about when it comes to this piece of it. And oh, this is what I wanted to do. So recently, I think it was last week or the week before. I think it was the week before where I just started my live cohort, right? And one of the clients that came in, and because you said that people come to you again for the non-pressure sales, they like the way that you do things, and this is what
Yeah.
people come to me for as well. This is
Yeah.
the first time I've ever heard this, but I'm pretty sure it's not the only time it's ever happened, but this is the first time it's ever been admitted to me. Not that people are trying to hide it, but here's what she said. We were having a conversation. Most of my conversations are in sales. I'm going to call it selling, for the lack of a better term. Most of my sales happens over chat, and
Hmm.
not the BS chat and all the stuff that we're used to seeing. Just a
Yeah.
regular conversation, and sometimes it happens in 24 hours. Sometimes it happens over 24 months. In this case,
Hmm.
it happened over, I think it was like 7 or 8 months that the
Yeah.
person decided to actually buy like right now, and one of the calls, one of the conversations was about how non-pressure I am. And then, so long story short, she bought the program and we're talking about this. And she said, I actually tested you. We went in like the conversation for a couple of weeks or whatever it was. I didn't buy the first time around. You said you would never follow up and do the whole, pushy
Yeah.
stuff and launch sequences and da 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 deadlines, all the stuff you just talked about, and you didn't. So I actually tested you to see if you were like true to your word, which I was. And I was so happy to hear that. I wasn't offended at all. At all.
Mm.
I'm like, oh, I'm so glad that you did that. I'm so glad that you said this
Hmm.
because it just, we've had a lot of discussions about like, why don't you're teaching something and why don't you just live it and do exactly the thing that you're doing when there's a lot of people who don't do that. That's a
Yeah.
whole other rabbit hole discussion that I may have
Yeah.
started, right? But it's like, yeah, you know what? My pillar is serve, don't sell. My pillar is number three, respect their timeline. And I know you have a lot to say about that too. So I'll shut up for a little bit and have your rebuttal, or not rebuttal, but your inclusion into this.
To add on to that, yeah,
Yeah,
no,
no,
absolutely. And I think there's something that you might have commented on just a recent post of mine about, the BS around ABCs of always be closing,
mm,
and I think that there's that. I feel like that's a bit of an outdated method of sales, and it's kind of been around since the early days of selling online. And every interaction that you go into, you want to go into it with the intention of like crafting the perfect opener and like driving the questions and kind of leading them into why they need your product or service. And I always saw that as very manipulative, even though it is highly effective.
yes,
And I think, unfortunately, in today's world, just because something is effective does not necessarily mean that it is the right thing to do. But because of these highly effective methods, a lot of people feel pressured to have to do certain things in order to get the sale. Um, and so going back to the comment that you made earlier today about like, the always be closing, and I think I might have mentioned back that I've adopted the never be closing philosophy
love
around
that.
why. Yeah, there's no need to be closing. And just the idea, the notion of closing is very much like I am in control. I know what's best for you. I'm going to control or dictate when you're going to buy from me, how you're going to buy from me, how much you're going to pay. And that just takes that power dynamic away from the person actually making the decision. So I think going back to your pillar 2 around wanting to come from service, respecting that timeline and actually believing that the person who is the best fit for your program already knows when the right time is for them to take action. Your job is not to convince them, to persuade them, to show them why they have all these BS limiting beliefs and objections and why they need to overcome it. Your job simply becomes to craft an offer that gets epic results and then get really good at messaging or communicating the value of that offer consistently over time. That's the thing that will build up that intrigue, that interest, that pull, and that detachment from needing to close the person is really the secret ingredient here.
Yeah, and I want to touch on that because like I went through so many different ways or styles of trying to sell because I always thought I can't sell. I really suck at selling and I don't like it and all this other stuff. And I did go through a period of time where I thought I was doing something wrong. And I went down the whole rabbit hole of, okay, well, here's all my objection handling stuff on that monitor there, waiting for Parmees to say something so that I can, and I'm totally disconnected with the conversation because I'm trying
Yeah.
to make the sale or the conversion or whatever you want to call it. And it really tugged at my heartstrings. So that's one other thing. But what you just said is really important because as soon as I switched my brain to serving, and you've probably heard this before, if you don't if you don't offer the thing, you could be doing a disservice to
Yeah.
someone who actually needs you. I I want to believe that. I do believe it in some cases, but I was when I was in the more I'll call it aggressive mode of trying that thing, that was the escape. Well, if you
Hmm.
don't do this, you're doing a disservice. Oh, okay. So I feel bad about it, but I'm doing a disservice, right? So I
Yeah.
latched onto that, which is not always true. So,
Yeah.
and at least from what I believe, it's not always
Yeah.
true. Because what you said is like it's not the right time for them right now. Okay. So when I latched onto, well, maybe okay. So let me give an example of this. Let me try to frame an example
Yeah.
of this. Let's say you and I are on a call and you do need help and it would be a disservice for you. Okay. So
Mhm.
instead of me pressuring you, and I know that it would be a disservice of you, if I step into the to serving you, because I'm like you, I'm pretty intuitive and know what the problem is and how to read people and all that stuff. So if I ask you a certain question, not manipulative questions, but actual caring questions about where I think you're stuck, then I move into the level of service and I can actually help you and coach you and move the needle for you. It doesn't mean I'm moving you closer to buying at that point, but
Right.
this is part of my selling without selling piece is I'm demonstrating my ability to latch into like exactly what your challenge is, help you see it or maybe and maybe move to a level of like, have you tried this or maybe this, or just getting you into momentum of some kind that may move you into, wow, Joy, like I've never seen it like that before. Tell me more about Atlas or tell me this. And then I'm like, cool, right? So that's one way that I move into that level of selling without selling. But then again, like you said, I am not attached to the sale on that call. If you
Yeah.
leave the call and say, this was epic, you blew my mind, I'm not saying, well, if you thought that was cool, you should really get into, and I don't go into that whole
Yeah.
BS stuff.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I love that because I feel that there's this huge push, especially nowadays. And I don't know if it's like the red car effect, where it's like, you think about a red car and then now you see it all over the place. But
Yeah.
I feel like the idea of like you need to be selling more often is a message that I'm seeing being shared over and over and over again. And I even posted inside my group with my own clients just this week and saying, I've been seeing a lot of people saying that you need to be showing up and you need to be selling daily. And I'm curious if
Wow.
you guys notice this message too, and how does it make you feel? And I had maybe 5 or 6 people respond, and every single person said that it makes me feel anxious. It makes me feel like I'm not doing enough. It makes me feel like I need to show up even more on these platforms beyond what I already have capacity for. And it makes me feel blamed that if I'm not hitting my goals in my business, that it's because I'm not selling enough. And
Wow.
and I see it because even just today, doing a quick little scroll in my feed, I think I saw maybe 3 different versions of the same message that was essentially saying that you are not selling enough, you are not putting your offers out there enough. And for anyone who's listening, or for anyone who actually agrees with that way of thinking, I'm also not saying I disagree with it, but the energy of which that comes from is very different from what Joey and I are talking about here. Because that idea, essentially the premise of that idea, is that people won't move or they won't buy unless I tell them to. And we're coming from this place, or at least I know I can speak for myself. I'm coming from this place of understanding the different buyer types, and
Hmm.
also really understanding that the people who are best suited for your work don't necessarily need to be handheld into making that decision, or don't need to be told to make that decision.
Yeah.
If anything, the people in my world are extremely intuitive, and when they come into my world and I ask, like, what what brought you here, what got you to apply. They'll say, I've been watching you for a long time, or I had someone that worked with you and had amazing things to say, and I checked out your content, I followed your stuff for a while, and you just seem to be bang on with your message every single time. You talked about the things that I've been thinking about but was too afraid to say, or you called out the issues in the industry that I don't see anybody else talking about, or just through your content alone, I was able to shift my perspective and see what needs to change in my business.
Boom.
And what they all say is that there was no attachment to the sale, meaning I wasn't giving value to then attach a call to action to the end of it. I was giving value because I was giving value. There was no end piece. And again, going back to the, well, if you're not putting your offers out there, people don't know how you can help them. Well, every single one of my clients have been able to go into my link in bio, find out what it is that I do, and apply to work with me without me having to say, here's what I need you to do next. I feel like that's a very disempowering way of viewing your audience and thinking like, if I don't tell them this is my offer, this is what it does, and this is why it's for them, and now's the reason to buy, they can't figure that out on their own.
Yeah, and wow, you just opened up another area here. So, to your point, like I agree with everything you say, and when it comes to, at least for me, to simplify like what I do for people, and I'll get flack for this because it's the only thing that I talk about, which is dream clients and group experiences, group coaching, like that kind of thing, and that's it. So
Right.
my tribe knows pretty much what I do. I don't need to really tell them because I only do one thing. Now,
Right.
some people might look at that and say, you're crazy. You should be having all kinds of different offers for different levels of customers and blah, 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 blah. But the way that I look at it and say, you're right. I know that that kind of works. But it's, for
Hmm.
me, it's complexity. And this goes beyond what we're talking about. But hey, it's part of the conversation too.
Yeah.
It's complexity for me. So I figured, you know what? Why don't I focus on the for me at the higher end of the market, the premium level, and then I can
Yeah.
do all of those other things for free that actually demonstrate pillar number two, serving and not selling, and that
Yeah.
brings people in and says like he's not asking for anything, and then they know that when they're ready, that they want to move to that premium level of the group
Yeah.
coaching, whatever it is. So for me, the offer thing, like I don't worry about it. Like it doesn't mean that I have to put out an offer every single time and
Yeah.
say you're not giving people um, enough notice about what you do. Like I'm
Yeah.
always talking about it. And then on the other side of the camp, the people who are
Yeah.
not, who don't kind of agree with all that, they're like, all you talk about is this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, then what is that telling you? If you're
Hmm.
noticing it and you don't like it, that means the dream clients are noticing it and they actually do like it. Right.
Yes.
So the
Yes.
offer thing is
Exactly.
easy.
Exactly. And I think there's this huge idea also, just as you're talking, I'm thinking like the people who are saying that you need to be selling more often is essentially like not necessarily that you need to be like very pushy with your sales, but
Right.
that there needs to be a content piece published at least daily that talks about the problem that you solve or that introduces the solution that you have. And I was slowly starting to feel a number of months ago like maybe I've got this wrong. Like maybe the way that I've been doing it isn't the best way to do it, or maybe the way to increase your conversions and increase the number of people coming into your world is to talk about what you do very often. But then I had to get very introspective and ask myself, the last, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 mentors that I've hired, or the last, let's say, 5 or 6 things that I've bought that have been a little bit more premium. Did I do it because they told me to, or did I do it because there was a very hectic call to action, or did I do it because I actually felt naturally drawn to that person? And once I really reflected on my own purchasing decisions, and I'm not saying that everybody makes decisions like I do, but the people who resonate with our way of thinking, we
Right.
don't need to be told to go buy something in order to go do it. The people that I bought from were people that I really resonated with their values, that did a really good job of demonstrating their expertise rather than talking about it, which is another huge thing I see. Like, it's one thing to tell the world you're really good at marketing, and another to create content that actually demonstrates that you're really good at
Mm-hmm.
marketing. So the
Mm-hmm.
people that I was drawn to had repeatedly over months and weeks demonstrated that they have mastery of this field or this area. And even though I had absolutely no clue what their offer was and what it did, because I resonated with their message so deeply, and because they had showed me the different angles of how they solve problems, I already had an idea of what this person was about. And the next step was just, okay, I need to see what the container is that they're selling. Like, is it a mastermind? Is it a course? Like, what is it? So I had already intuitively made the decision that I want to work with this person because of the exposure to their content. And then I went and I did the research on my own of like going into their bio, checking out their website, looking at their testimonials. But I didn't need to be told constantly by them what the offer was in order for me to develop that desire. Do you
And
do you resonate with that?
100%, because you're actually talking about where when I tell my tribe, or suggest to them, look, your dream clients are watching you. They're watching you from the sidelines. They've got binoculars on, and they will watch everything that you do, and they will come to the point of understanding how your superpowers can help them and when they can help them, which is exactly what you described in a bigger story, right? Is like you were watching them, you figured, I like this person. Here's how I think they can help me. I'm going to go now find what they have for me to
Yeah.
to work with them. And to me, that's a easier sale. It's so much. There's no pressure whatsoever, because by the time, and I tell this to clients all the time in my cohort,
Yeah.
I'm like, look, every single one of you came through this exact process. I never had to sell you. I never had to push you. You came to me, and by the time you came to me, you were pretty much pre-sold. It was
Yeah.
done. I didn't have to sell anything to you. I might have had to give you a couple of details here and there, but that was it. That's what pre-sold clients is. The problem is that I find with people that are listening to us right now, they and well, here's the problem from my angle of what I just said, that dream clients are watching you. You can't see them. They're invisible clients. You
Hmm.
can't see them, which sucks. So you can't really measure the fact of, well, I put a Facebook ad out and I didn't get these, how many opt-ins did I get, and I paid for this. You can't
Right.
really see the result. It only
Yeah.
happens after the fact. And can you really tie it back to the 17 million posts that you did? I don't know. Who knows?
Hmm.
Was it from YouTube? Was it from your Facebook page? I don't know. But here's the beauty of this. If you're like us, which I'm assuming that you are, like, heart centered, whereas, look, you're starting the flywheel, right? And it sucks at the beginning because it's so hard to start that flywheel going, and it's tough.
Hmm.
But once you get that momentum, and let's use it as a simple example of just bringing people into your Facebook group. You get a
Yeah.
couple of people in, you invite them to a cohort or something, or you do something and it doesn't work. You didn't get anybody, or you got one person. Well, you're continuously, if you're doing the right thing and serving, you're bringing more people in constantly. And instead of selling them, you're just serving, 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 and you're delivering. So to me, my day is filled with that. Serving, deliver, serve, deliver, serve, deliver. It's never about selling, because it always
Yeah.
comes to the, hey, I'm having another cohort. And all of a sudden I get 20 hands go up and say, yeah, I'd like to talk a little bit more about that. Right. And I'm like,
Exactly.
Parmees, holy crap, you've been on my list for like 18 months, or you just came in like last week. Wow. Right. So it just this, it's
I
perpetual
love that.
momentum.
I love that. And I love that you said that your day is essentially filled with serving and delivering, because that is the thing that has built up the momentum, like you said, to create that desire for what you offer without you having to tell them what the
Hmm.
offer is. And I think, unfortunately, again, this idea that you need to always be selling. I even had someone reply to my comment inside my group saying that, I've been told that people need to have like 20 plus exposures to you before they
Yeah.
make a decision. And my background being in conversion copywriting and being in like conversion rate optimization, I know that for a fact. And that was one of the reasons I started moving away from conversion rate optimization, because people are not data points. And I think I've said this on this show before, that people are not, you can't reduce them down to a statistic and say, like, just because someone needs, on average, based on this meta-analysis, someone needs about 22 exposures to your message in order to make a decision. That doesn't mean that you need to make 22 posts, or if you did make 22 posts talking about your offer, that A, everybody is going to see it, and B, that it's going to get the person to make a decision. There's so many confounding factors that go into why someone would want to work with you at that time. There's a timing thing, there's a capacity thing, there's so much that goes into a buying decision that can't be reduced to you as the provider, you as the coach or the practitioner being in control of that decision. So your job only becomes to get really good at the thing that you do, get people epic results so that they can go off and be advocates for what it is that you do,
Right.
and simply show up in the best way that you can, giving your best content out for free, which I know seems to be a bit controversial every time I say to, but giving your best stuff out for free and really demonstrating how you get results for people. That is the thing that's going to build up that desire, because you never know who's watching. And I'll even admit, the applications that I get inside my program, when I look at the name, I don't even recognize the name.
Right.
And
Right.
they often tell me, I've been following you for months, I've been following you for years. I don't even know who this person is. They've never engaged with my content, right? They've never actually liked or commented or whatnot. And I'll even joke with a lot of people because they'll say, "Oh, I would have the sales that you have if I had the engagement if I had the same level of engagement on my posts." And I say, the people who engage with my posts are either friends, industry peers, or current clients. Like, I don't have new people that are like, "Oh my God, I've been liking every single post for the last 3 years and now I'm ready to be a client." They're in the background. They're silent. I don't even know who they are until they actually raise their hand and say, "I want to work with you."
Yeah, that's the point, right? So most of the time, I learned this from Dean Jackson, where they did this study where when people come in, their buyers are usually between 3 months, like anywhere from between 1 and 3 months, or 18 months, like between 3 and 18 months. Okay, so
Mhm.
and most people want that first week. They want the first month, not even a month. They want the first 2 week buyers, and there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with having those buyers, but everybody's focused right there. Let me get the immediate buy. So I've switched my focus to the 18-month buyers, and when I was teaching Atlas the couple days, like I always give examples of this because many of the people that come in are like what you just said. I didn't really, I kind of know who they are. Sometimes I recognize them. They've been just on my list or whatever, opening emails here and there, but then they buy later. But the actual transaction of when we had I'll call it a sales conversation. Like,
Yeah.
actually, can you tell me about Atlas to the point they buy? Might be sometimes a day, sometimes 2 days, right? And if I look at that vanity metric and say, look, Parmees, like 2 days and I had a sale, right?
Yeah.
But it's BS because that person actually was on the list for 18 months. And I've proven that again and again and again every time I look back at the data, just so I can show everybody, because I do share that timeline of everyone saying most of your people are going to be within that 3 to 18 month period of
Right.
buying, the people who
Right.
are going to buy. And plus, we don't even know who those buyers are either, which all this kind of sucks, right? But
Yeah.
if you're okay with if you step into the serving piece of it, then there are the buyers, or there are the people who are going to want to work with you. Just have faith that they're there. And the more that you serve, the better it is for you. If you start moving into, and this is just from my opinion, if you start moving into the aggressive piece or trying to make sales because it's not happening fast enough for you, you're going to mess a lot of it up. Like that flywheel, you're going to have to start all over again.
Yes. Yeah, and I think one of the biggest objections, and especially inside my group, and people saying, "Well, what does this mean? Does this mean that I have to wait and wait and wait before I can actually see some tangible results from my marketing efforts?" Like I get that the long-term
Mm,
thinking can be scary to a lot of people, because it's like, well, 18 months, that's a long time to get a single person to say yes. But what we oftentimes forget is that not everyone is moving in that linear fashion. Meaning, if you've
yeah.
been showing up regularly for, quite some time, there are people in your audience that are a lot warmer, or who are a lot more ready or at a place to make a decision to want to work with you. It's not like everybody in your audience requires 18 months in order to make a decision.
Right.
And I think that pressure of like, well, I need to sell, I need to convert, my posts have not been doing well, again, comes from this linear way of thinking of like, oh, well, I did a launch, or I did a live event, or I did a conversion event, and it did not produce any results. But what we don't see is, did it move someone a little bit closer to understanding the depth of your work? Do they now feel a little bit more nurtured by you? Even though they did not purchase or buy or sign in to be a part of your program right now, does not mean that that conversion event was not effective. If anything, it built up a deeper level of relevance and intimacy with them, so that maybe in the future they can become a client. But this kind of self-proposed timeline that we have, around, I need to have sales posts go out because I need to up my conversions. Again, it kind of assumes that we're the controller of when people can make decisions, and it completely disregards the fact that a lot of people make decisions based on where they're at, and intuitively how deeply connected do they feel with you, and how aligned is your solution for where they are at in their business right now.
Yeah. And, to your point about the 18 months, I do want to stress that too. It's not always that 18 months, but
Right.
on one of the things that I am very passionate about is you're not you if you go into business under financial pressure, that's not the best place to be. And I
Yeah.
see a lot of people do that. And that's one of the reasons why I don't work a lot of times with newbie people, because
Yeah.
they're at the top of that sigmoid curve, and then they hit that first crash, or the launch didn't work or something, and they're like, well, this thing doesn't work, I'm out. And but so it's hard for me to deal with a lot of those people. Not to say that I'm not dealing with any person who's brand new, but there are people who will come into my world who are completely cold to Joey,
Yeah.
and they just latched on, and they are those people who are buying within the first week or the first month, because
Mhm.
they're just, it's kind of like they're binge watching, right? They're binge watching Netflix, and they're like, I love everything about this. I want to do everything here. What's the fastest way for me to work with this person? That does happen. However, here's the key. Before, I was attached to that. Before, well, I shouldn't say I was attached, but I was told to, like, you need to get these, the low hanging fruit as fast as possible and all these things. And I'm like, okay, well, that's, I guess, that's how you do it. And it really
Mhm.
stressed me out. It's not to say that I don't offer something at the first time we connect. Let me phrase this the right way, because I don't want I don't want to seem as though I'm contradicting what we're saying here.
Yeah.
In an email situation, you will not go into like a sales sequence with me. You'll get like the gift, and you'll get some information on the bottom of that email. So now we're going to go into some details on how to sell without selling. On the bottom
Mhm.
of that email, I'll have a very small little PS that says, by the way, if you want to XYZ, just message me or email with me with the word XYZ, and let's have a chat. And so
Mhm.
it's giving the opportunity without selling anything. It's a
Yeah.
very subtle, by the way, if you're here and you want to talk about this, I'm open to having a discussion with you, right? That rarely happens. Like, rarely will I get someone at that point to say, let's have a conversation, but I have had it. But the
Yeah.
point is that a lot of people focus on that first week message. Like, here's how I'm going to get
Mhm.
the sale and all these things, where I just let it go. To me, is if you came into my world in a week and you bought from me, it would be like icing on a cake. I'd be like, wow, that was, that's amazing. But I can't
Yeah.
bank my whole business based on it. Now, let me get to the point of this whole, what I was trying to make the point is, I believe you need to be passionate about who you serve and what you're serving, so that you can go without having a sale. And I know it's really tough, and it's really, really financially tough. And if you're not ready for that, people can feel the pressure, no
Yeah.
matter how that pressure comes in, an email, over a Zoom call, in a post. They can feel the pressure of you saying, I need to get some freaking money in here.
Yeah.
Do you agree or disagree?
I so agree, and I think this is a topic we've even talked about on previous episodes, where the energy behind the content speaks louder than the actual content itself. And yes, people can feel the desperation, people can feel the graspiness, people can feel the inauthentic energy that sometimes comes off as a sales post, or the fake vulnerability, or whatever tactic that you're using because you've been told this is the fastest way to get someone to convert and become a client. And I think at the same time, one of the things, and kind of getting a little bit more into like the tangible examples of how I do selling without selling as well. This came to me as I was talking or going on my walk today. And I realized, like, the entrepreneurs I've come across that really make it, and that really are in this state of flow, and like you said, are okay with going a long time without having a sale, are the people who would continue talking about the things that they do for free, like
Right.
if they weren't even getting paid for it. And again, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but before I even had a business, or before I even had an offer that does the thing I do within marketing right now, I've been talking about some of the themes that have still come up in my content right now since 2018,
Right.
meaning that and I'm not saying it requires 5 years in order for someone to build up their expertise, but these were things that I was just very passionately talking about without ever having a program or something to tie it to. It just so happens now that I have a program that I sell. But that sense of detachment came from, even if I didn't have anything to sell, I would still be showing up talking about the thing that I do, because that's what being heart centered it means to me. Now, some of the more tangible ways that I do that. And when someone says, well, okay, well, great, but now I want to talk about my offer, or I want to, how do I demonstrate my expertise? How do I create content that creates that pull without me having to talk about my solution, or making that hardcore sale? Is, will give people enough context around what it is that you do so that they actually understand and can see the transformation of what it looks like to work with you without even you having to say, this is the thing that I do. And a couple of ways that I've done this inside my own business is a lot of my messaging talks about the myths and misconceptions that people have around business and messaging, or some of the ways that I've helped different clients elevate their message, the tangible things I've implemented in their business, what were the results that they got out of it. In my stories, I do a lot of behind the scenes of my day to day of like, hey, I was working with a client, Joey, today, and he was really struggling getting this idea out. Here are 3 things that we implemented with him, and it was really helpful. So what people get to see is they get an idea of what does it actually look like when they work with me. So they naturally over time build that desire without me being like, hey, inside my program neuromessage, we've got this pillar that talks about blah, 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 blah. I'm not talking about the program. I'm talking about the things that I do with my clients inside the program and what results they yield as a result of doing that thing. That's how I build up that like intuitive desire of being like, oh, that's me, or oh, that's what I want to do as well. It's being
That's
transparent.
Yeah, I love that. And one of the things that I like to do is I do the unscalable at this point because I have time. We all think that we don't have time, but as entrepreneurs at the beginning, all we have is time. We're just
Yeah.
using the time in the wrong ways. So
Yeah.
what I do is I do the unscalable, and I'm all about demonstration. I'm all about proving how different I am and proving that I can help someone move the needle. So I'll bring in groups, like live groups, and just go through, call it what you want, a master class, a free training, whatever it is. It's not a webinar, it's not a sales pitch at the end, there's nothing like that. It's like, here's your challenge. Let me show you how to fix this challenge right now. And every single time I do that, everybody, almost everybody, I can't really say everybody because that would be a lie, but pretty much everybody says, this has been the best thing I've ever seen. I've never got to this level before. I had a breakthrough. Here's what whatever. They can see themselves and the needle move. And that is how I sell without selling, because I am, first of all, I want people to respect, not respect, but be okay with the way that I am, the way that I
Yeah.
teach, the way that I talk, the way everything that I show up, all that stuff. And
Yeah.
if you come in for free and I do all this stuff for you and you're like, I don't really dig this dude, but he still helped me. I still did a good deed. On the other side, it's like, I can really dig this guy and he really helped me out. When I'm ready, I'm going to ask him. And that might be at the end of that call. It might be on the next email, or it might be 18 months from now. But
Yeah.
that's all I'm doing. And that's when I mean, when I said that all I'm doing is serving and delivering,
Yeah.
and never having to sell. And here's
Yeah.
the other cool part. Oh, actually, I'll let you talk
No,
about
no,
that
no.
for a
Go for
second.
it. Go for it. I want to know the other cool part.
The other cool part is this. I used to have a lot of clarity calls, if you want to call them, whatever you want to call them,
Yeah.
right? Clarity calls. Literally a banker's box below on where my foot is right now, of conversations that went nowhere because of all that trying conversion and selling and stuff.
Hmm.
And now, so I rarely get on clarity calls. Like I just told you that most of my sales happen between, and like an authentic, awesome chat, a
Yeah.
conversation. I hate calling it chat. Like it's a conversation, and even an email. Now, the odd time someone will get on a clarity call because they want more information or they just want to chat a little bit.
Yep.
There have been times where somebody will say, tell me about Atlas or whatever. And I'll say, okay. And let me preface this. This is hard for, like, because you and I we're intuitive. So we know what we can say to individual people. But I'm going to give you this one part where this is a person who we vibe already. I know I can say something. I can be a little bit tongue in cheek. So I'll
Hmm.
say, okay, Parmees, let me put my sales hat on now and sell you on this thing. Is that cool? And then they're like, but it's not a line. It's not a
Yeah.
line. It's like, yeah, okay, cool, sell me. Right. And then I love those kind of conversations because I used to be in that mode all the time, which is like, when do I transfer this call to the sales part of the call? Whereas the
Mm-hmm.
other piece of it, and again, I don't happen, it doesn't happen all the time, but there has been times where somebody says, tell me about Atlas or whatever. And I'll say, this wasn't supposed to be a sales call. And they're like, just sell me on it. I'm like, okay, let me put my sales hat on. And it's a
Yeah.
really fun thing to go through. And
Yeah.
I'm telling you, Parmees, that sale is so easy. That's another piece of it. But I believe that it has everything to do back to the stuff we're talking about, the demonstration, the showing up and caring for somebody without having a sale attached to it.
Yeah, and do you notice that in that conversation, it's almost like the consent came from the other person, meaning that you didn't go into the call with this premeditated agenda that you're going to show up and you're going to hold space for them, you're going to ask questions, and once they're all buttered up, you're going to then kind of, spoon feed them the sale. What happens there is that you actually show up from a place of service, and they're the ones that instigate the sale, not
Right.
you. The power dynamic has shifted from you being in the driver's seat, which is what how sales are taught, right? Like, you need to be in control of the conversation at all times. Don't let them get off the phone without a credit card number. Don't let them do too much of the question asking. Like, you're the one that needs to lead the conversation, and instead you're just like, no, I'm here to give you the clarity that that you opted for, that you're requiring. And if they're the ones that instigate the, okay, tell me about Atlas, that's where you can go into the sales mode. It's not the other way around. And that's why I think the selling without selling idea, even in your content, is the same. Like, I will never DM someone details about my program unless they have very specifically specified in a content, like, I'm interested in this, please tell
Right.
me more.
Right.
Yeah.
And oh my God, this is like so counterintuitive because, you know, a lot of people will think that it's crazy. Again, there's so many of these, I guess I'll just call it traumatized sayings
Yeah.
or whatever,
Yeah.
where it's like, okay, I go into a call and I'm serving you or I'm giving you some help, and then there's a problem I can see, and then it'd be like a transitional thing to something like, so now that I've helped you with that, could I take like 2 minutes of your time to speak a little bit more about me, helping you more with that kind of thing. Oh my God, like I just suck at doing that. Like I can't do
Yeah.
it, even though there might be somebody listening right now and go, no, that's how you actually move people into the sale,
Yeah.
and that's how you. For me, Parmees, I don't know. I can't do that. I
Yeah.
just I like you said. I love the fact that you say let them have the power, and I can't tell you how many times I still do it to this day. And it's not a tactic. It's just this is how this call needs to be. Where I say, okay, Parmees, we got 20 minutes or so. I'm going to let you navigate the call. What do you want to talk about? Where do you want to start? Rather
Right.
than I could easily, because then again, now somebody who's like, oh, no, you have to have control. You got to start asking the right questions to blah, blah, blah. I
Mm-hmm.
understand that too, because there are some people who need guidance, right? But this again comes back to the intuition part of it. And I don't know if
Yeah.
that's, do you agree
Yes.
with that?
Yeah, so one of the things that comes up for me as you're talking about that is that there are times that I will switch it into talking about something that I will solve for them within the program, but
Yeah.
because I can very clearly tell that the problem that they have to solve is something that I can very easily solve for them once they're a client. And
Yeah.
I think this is also where, like, those boundaries come into play as well, where it's like, yes, I'm all about giving away your best stuff for free, but someone will come into my DMs or ask a very specific question, and I realize that I can't actually serve this person by answering their question through the DMs or just through a Facebook comment. And there's a lot more personalization and customization that needs to go that into that answer, so that I feel like I'm coming from a place of service. So even if you scope some of my Facebook posts, there are times where I'll comment back when someone says something like, "Oh, I would really love to know how you think about XYZ." And I'll say, "Well, that's a really good question, and you're not the first person to ask." And that's why I have an entire module inside my program where I've mapped out a process that helps you do the very thing that you're asking. And so
Mm-hmm.
some
Mm-hmm.
like, well, hold on a second, Parmees, you're selling there. And I'm like, yes, but that's where I see selling with service coming through. Because once again, the person has now brought into light a problem that they have that they want to solve. And I know that I've got a system, a process, or something inside my program that could really help them. And I just leave it at that. Like, I don't say, here, I'm going to send you the link and I would love to get on a call. And, like, I don't push anything. I just say, oh, that's a really good question. So many of my clients also have that problem. That's why I've created a lesson, or I've created a tool inside my program that allows you to do that. And that's it. Once again, I put the ball back into their court. And if they say, tell me more, I'm really interested, or like, oh, that's fascinating, can we see how that applies to me? Then I can get into a little bit more of an in depth conversation around what that would look like.
So here's a question. Here's a lovingly challenging question. Are you
Yeah.
leading them to that reply?
That's a great question. I don't think so, because
Right.
I'm answering their question.
Right.
And Is it leading? Technically, yes, because I'm mentioning, hey, I have a program that does that. But I also am answering their question, which is, hey, what are your thoughts on this? Or I have a problem on this. What would you do to solve that? I can't answer, I can't provide a transformation within a short Facebook comment or a quick message back and forth with a person. There's a lot more depth and nuance that needs to go into that. So if someone comes to me and says, like, I've been in my business for a little while, and I feel stuck not knowing what to produce in my posts. Like, I have no idea what I need to say. I'm not going to be like, oh, well, here's 5 content prompts that you can use. I want to get into the depth of why is it that they feel stumped on their content? What are the deeper layers of, do they have clarity on that dream client? Do they have clarity on their transformation? Do they know what are the things that people need to hear to build up that authority? So I would not be doing them a service by actually answering their question in that call. I instead say, this is a lot more of a complex issue, and it's something that I go way deeper into inside my program. But
Yeah.
I'm not attached to any way they respond. If they respond being like, oh, cool, okay, and I say, okay, great, I move on with my day. Like, I'm not trying to
Yeah.
see,
So
follow
that's
up. See.
Yeah, and that's where I was going with this. So I'm glad you said that because it's like I'm sure we both know how to lead a conversation to, okay, here's what I'm going to write in order to get this question asked, so then I can get to this sale or to whatever other thing. That's where I was going with this, which I knew deep in my heart that that's not what you meant. So it's
Yeah,
like you're serving this content piece, but then somebody asks a question that is either related directly to that or an adjacent to the thing that
yeah,
goes into, well, that's a little bit deeper in the conversation that we're having here, and that's where you say that's where the module is, and here's where the thing that I do. So it's not leading in a sense of where we could do that. We could manipulate any content we want to and say, okay, this is where I want them to end up. I think
yeah,
that's what I really want to say is, and again,
yeah,
I'm just putting words in your mouth so you can disagree with this, but for most of the part, what I'm hearing is that you're not writing a post based on, let me write this so so I can sell my program on this. You're writing the
yeah.
post that ends up with a couple of threads or posts or comments that said, well, actually, I do have a thing for that based on the thing that you've asked. Am I on target there or
Yeah.
totally off?
No, no, you're completely on target. And I'll also add this into there as well, is that inside my program, I actually do teach my clients, like, if you want to build up desire for what it is that you do, you can't just be talking about random things on the internet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even though, and we've talked about this on our previous call, like, I don't believe in following like content pillars or specific frameworks and formulas of what you need to say. I also don't think that if you're just showing up posting pictures of your ice cream on Sunday and your dog walk, that people are going to know what it is that you do. So you do
Right.
want to talk about the things that you solve inside your program, but you want to do it in a way where you're actually demonstrating your expertise about a topic. So I could take tonight's discussion about selling without selling and turn it into like 4 different ways that you can
Yep.
show up on social media to sell without needing to sell. And I can even add a call to action to that and be like, in order to sell without selling, you actually need to have clarity on your brand identity. You need to know what your brand message is, and you need to know how to cultivate a good brand presence, which are all things I cover inside my program. So, yes, I technically could be leading into an offer, but what I'm doing, the core meat and potatoes of that post, is actually delivering the value rather than focusing on, I'm going to say this because it's going to position my offer as the next viable solution.
Yeah, right. And that's what I mean. Like you didn't show up today to say, okay, let's talk about this so that I could
Yeah,
repurpose this so I could sell my program next week.
right.
Am I right? Like that we're just
100%.
showing up and serving. What
Yes.
happens with the content that we do now may end up being something that leads someone to a sale later on because we've repurposed it and there was a conversation that began out of the content that we pull out from this particular episode.
Exactly. And if anything, let's say us right now being here completely detached from what result this
Right.
episode is going to create. Like, I didn't show up with the intention of like, ooh, who in Joey's audience can I convert? But someone could be watching this right now and be very pulled to how either you or I are describing something,
100%.
or they might feel like, oh my goodness, I never thought about that. Or they might resonate with, let's say, what I said around feeling pressure around needing to sell every day, and they're saying, yes, I've been told that I need to show up and I need to sell every day and I don't want to do that. That unequivocally creates that natural pull and desire towards wanting to learn a little bit more on what is it that we teach, how is it that we do things differently. Like, oh, I'm really pulled towards this selling without selling concept, so maybe I should listen in to these
Yep.
two a little more often to learn a bit more. They might get on your email list. They might listen to my last podcast episode. Like they might opt in. But again, I'm detached from that process of being like, okay, there's, I don't know how many people live on this call right now. And I hope at least two of them will reach out by the end of tonight saying like, I want to work with you. That's not even a thought that crosses my mind.
Yeah, you and me both, and this kind of reminds me of a really, I'm going to go way back here. There was a
Yeah.
story. It's a quick story, probably where some of my trauma about the whole selling thing came into play. I was speaking to one of a very, like an influential television person back,
Yeah.
way back. And I wanted her to be involved with me in some way, shape, or form. And so we met her and her agent. First time I ever met an agent in my life. And so we're talking about the idea, and I forget what the idea was, whatever it was. And it would help both of us. But this guy sat there, and we were up in there like a private area of this club. I'll never forget. It was like a red velvet room type of thing. Just us, four of us there. Anyway, I got through my pitch, if you want to call it that. And she was like nodding her head. She's like, "Wow, that's truly interesting." I look over to the dude, and he looks at me and he says, "What about the money?" I go, "Money? What are you talking about?"
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, "What about the money?" I go, "There is no money." Like this is the idea in order, because I think it was about a promotion or some kind of, like, we'd give her a little bit of status, and he didn't say any other words for on and on about except for, "I got it. What about the money?" And it just floored me. I'm like, holy crap, is that all you care about?
Yeah.
It didn't fly, because
Yeah.
obviously he's her agent, but maybe where some of my trauma comes in with the
Wow.
whole, this is only about the money, right? Because it was like, when you see that energy where somebody's just sitting there and they're just waiting for you to shut up so they can
Yeah.
say something. And that's what he wanted to say through that whole conversation, was just let them do their pitch. And I'm just going to say, what about the money? Like, it's just, anyway, I don't know
Yeah.
if that brought any
No, it does.
context to this
Oh, it
conversation.
does. And I think actually, I mean, it ties back into what I posted about today, which you saw was, which was around like, you can boast about how good you are at getting sales and how many people you got inside your program. And by no way, shape, or form am I also saying that like, money is evil and we're just here because we're a
Yeah.
charity. Like, anyone who's on this call, I think they understand, like, yes, money is required to operate a business. We all have livelihoods. We could have a whole other episode talking about like the definitions we give to money and like how much is enough and whatnot. However, I think that there's a very big lack of context when we see a lot of these big figures say that, I had my first six-figure launch, or like I did this webinar and converted 300 people. And it's like, okay, yes, but how many of those people felt pressured or made a decision out of scarcity? How many of those people were triggered or kind of made a decision out of this like FOMO of like, if I don't make this decision now, it means I'm not invested in myself. And unfortunately, a lot of the coaching and consulting online space is very gaslighty in the sense that if you want to get to XYZ goal, you need to invest into yourself. And the people who make it are the ones that go into debt in order to make matters meet. And it's just, I don't really resonate with that. So that
Mm-hmm.
hardcore sell component of even someone saying, well, what about the money? A lot of clients even will say, well, yeah, but I want to be dedicated to the long game. I want to be able to show up in service, but yeah, what about the money? And it's such an esoteric way of approaching this, but the less you become hyper focused on the end outcome of getting to that money, and the more you become engulfed in creating actual value and demonstrating that value on a consistent basis, the more the money almost seems to come out of nowhere as a byproduct. The more people, and when I say that, I don't mean it just falls out of the sky, the more people actually feel drawn to want to pay you for your expertise because you have that sense of detachment from it.
Yeah. And
So,
I couldn't agree with you more, because, and these are the hard things for me to also teach somebody, because it is a lot about blind faith, and I know exactly what you're saying and I believe that when I say serve, don't sell, there's another component to that, because it's like serve, don't sell, because serving equals money, right? And
yeah,
that's what it really means. And it's not about, well, how am I going to make a whole bunch of money? Because I also believe that there's two main businesses in the world, or people. One is money driven, the other is mission driven. And here
yeah,
I had a huge block with money before, whereas like, well, because I'm heart centered, I don't want money. I don't want to sell and all this kind of stuff. And that blocked me, which is not a good thing, because you, like you said, you need a healthy business. And in order for us to actually serve, because I had to do all this inner work, all this stuff, and say, well, if I truly want to serve, then if I just give stuff for free because I don't want to sell and all that stuff, eventually I'm going to go broke and I can't serve anybody. But I don't want to
Yeah.
be that salesperson. What I realized and what helped me, and I don't know if it's going to help you or anybody else listening to this, is that I realized that yes, there are money driven people, which I am not, and that it's not about the money. And but money's great, great life. But mission driven people, which is what I am and what I believe you are too, and pretty much everybody listening to this,
Hmm.
we need more money than mission driven people, or sorry, than money driven people.
Yeah.
Mission driven people need more money than money driven. Here's why: because we have a mission. Because
Hmm.
it's not about the money for us. Like, yes, we can have the greatest life. We can buy the cars if you want to, and a nice house and fancy stuff or whatever, and have a great life. But it's more about giving that money to other things, charities and building wells or whatever you want to do. So you're
Hmm.
not chasing money in order for the fact because it's money. You want more money because you want to give more to the world. Where money
Hmm.
driven people are all about where's the next dollar? What about the money? Right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's how, at least for me, I broke through the barrier of, no, I don't want to make 1 million or 2 million or 10 million. I don't need it. I could live easily off $100,000 or $250,000, easily. I don't need it, but I do want to make more. If you give me more, I will take it because I love to give. I love to walk up. Parmees, I don't know if I've ever shared this openly with a lot of people. Maybe I have once or twice, but it's not something that's secret. But like, I would just love to have the type of money where I could go to places like a Make a Wish or something, okay,
Yeah.
and just donate to a family who can't go to Disney World
Yeah.
anonymously. Just go.
Yeah.
I don't need the big check with the picture in the newspaper. I don't need any of that crap. Here's the money. Just go and just take this off of your plate. Like, that's what I like. I want to be that dude that goes into Walmart and pays for all of those gifts that are on layaway anonymously. Like, that to
Yeah.
me is something where I could change people's life, and that's a mission for me. Is like, how do I make people's lives better without even having to have that recognition? So that's the mission.
Absolutely.
Part of the
Yeah.
mission.
Yeah. I love
Anyway, that
that.
was another whole tangent. I don't know if we had to go on there.
Oh, it's good. I mean, I think it's all relevant because I think this attachment to the sales also comes back down. Like it's a confronting question to ask yourself where it's like,
Yeah.
what am I what am I making the sales mean for me? And if you have a 1 month or 2 month period where you didn't necessarily get the sales you wanted, what are you making it mean about your worth and your value? Right? What are
Yeah.
you making it mean about how good of a practitioner you are? And I think that blind faith sometimes it's a lot more about just like having blind faith, and it's more just being committed to the process of what it takes to actually create a sustainable business rather than looking at the sales as a reflection of your worth and your value in the world. So I think it all comes back down to what you said. It's like it's what do you value and how do you want to cultivate those um, those relationships with the right people. So, see, we have
Yeah.
a comment.
Yeah. You want to read it?
Yeah, so I feel after listening to you both, um, sorry, to you both, is that you both have realized is so much better in the long run to authentically share and give to with other people that need your help, then become unattached to the results you both will enjoy. Yeah, so turning your abilities and helping others with what they need into a business is a wonderful thing because we all like to spend money, especially for what it is we need in our lives. And it is even better when you have someone that really wants to give you real value added in. Yeah, exactly. And I think this is the key piece that a lot of people forget as well is that people are out here looking for solutions. People are actually they want your expertise. They want the thing that you do, but they want to be able to make that decision on their timeline with the practitioner or the provider that best aligns with them. And so when we just show up in service and creating these epic products and services, that is the thing that people want to buy into. They don't want to buy into the person who has, the spectacular sales process and the closers and the setters and the all the different bells and whistles of sales because they've been told that's what they need to hit their target and hit their goals inside their business. but like you don't actually feel a connection with them, or you get inside their programs and you're wildly disappointed by how surface level everything is, right? So I think honestly that this, especially in this era, in this economy of, people talking about like, well, a lot of people are being a little bit careful with where they're spending their money. I really do believe that it's a cleansing period where people who don't actually have their heart in their business are not necessarily going to see the same results as the people who do have their heart in their business and have poured into developing those relationships and being unattached from the process, and all of that. So, yeah, great
Yeah.
comment, Jeffrey.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeffrey, by the way. Great comment. Uh, Dang it. I was just going to ask you a question. It'll come back to me. Um, yeah. Anyway, dang it. It was a good one, too. So,
It's all good. It'll come back.
it'll come back. It'll come back. You know, when you talk about the service and the commitment of the business, I think that's a huge, well, I know it's a huge thing because a lot of people, if oh, here's what it was. It was more of a comment or an observation. When when you're not committed to the business, what happens is you are always you're looking for the sale, and it's I lost it again. How do I want to phrase this? How do I want to phrase this, Parmees? It's got to help me out. Um,
Are you trying to say that when you're not trying to make the business grow?
yeah, it has something to do. Geez, when you got it right there, it's like,
Yeah.
and it's like that. The words won't come to my mouth.
Yeah.
Um, but it has to do with what we're talking about here. Like that's what triggered the thought. It was more about where if we're attached to the sale. Let me just try and talk it out. Maybe it'll
Yeah, it'll
be
come out.
cohesive in a second. Um, because I know that there's an example that I wanted to pull from. Anyway, just interrupt me here if you got something else to add to this because
It'll come back. It'll come back.
damn it. I hate when that happens.
It's all good. No, it's all good. I think the one core thing that if I could like leave your audience with this, um, is that there's various ways that you can create desire for your programs or for what it is that you offer without needing to tell people that that is the actual offer itself. And when we talk about detachment, and by the way, Joe, if it comes back, you feel free to just
I will
interrupt me.
interrupt you right away. So because I don't want to lose
Yeah.
it again.
Yeah. Um, so when we're talking about like not needing to be attached to the money and being dedicated to the long game and all of that, again, I think the one objection that keeps coming up and that I know that clients have voiced is like, yeah, but what if I want to build a little bit of that momentum? What if I want to see that first sale come through, or that second sale of this new offer? And my one piece of advice is to show up with content that actually demonstrates what's the benefit of someone implementing the prescription or implementing the tools, the processes, the modalities of what you do inside your program. One
Yeah.
of the best ways to build up authority in my space without needing to sell people constantly is doing behind the scenes, like I said, of being like, hey, this is my client Joey, and this is a case study of what we worked on together. Or, when Joey first came to me, he was struggling greatly with being able to express all the things that he does into a single sentence, and what we did was blah, blah, blah. And the more you do this is how you give people a well rounded idea of what is it that you help people with and what's the benefit of them working with you without you needing to constantly be like, here's my offer and here's why it's so amazing and here's why you need to take action on it now. And if you don't take action on it now, here are all the negative things that can happen as a result of that. Like, we don't want to be pushing that type of messaging.
Now, in that example, would you give people the method or the tool or the framework or the thing that helped me in that example helped Joey get to this result instead of saying here's where Joey was, here's his result? Would you give them the middle piece as well
Yes,
if
very
it was
good
a
question.
simple yeah.
Yeah, but the way that I would frame the middle piece is that I wouldn't go through all the deep nitty gritty
Yeah.
details of what needs to happen. I would sum it up in the concept. So, for example, I would say Joey was here and he wanted to get here, and he had tried all these other things that other coaches had given him and they weren't effective. So, what we ended up doing is that I helped Joey narrow down his scope of, his own methodology into a 4-step process that was really easy for him to describe to his clients. And then once we did that, he felt a lot more he felt a lot more confident in his brand identity and understanding what his stance is in the marketplace. And once he was really solid on what his stance was, then we focused on helping him understand how to craft very specific content pieces that then demonstrate his ability to do the thing that he does. And once we did that over the course of 90 days, he repeatedly showed up with the same message over and over again, which resulted in 10 new clients. So do you see how I spell out my process, but I'm not telling them exactly what happened because it would be virtually impossible for me to
Yeah, for
sum it up,
sure.
right?
For
And
sure.
what that
Yeah.
does is that now people are like, okay, I like her method. I want to do that for myself. And now we're being transparent in the approach that we have with it. I'm not saying, well, what we did with Joey is that he had to DM 100 people a cold message every day so that he can get a client. I'm actually being transparent with my methodology so someone could say, okay, that I can do. I can get behind that.
Yeah, and kind of like when we go back to one of our conversations before, remember when I brought up the whole chain of beliefs, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like I know what the problem is, and I could tell them these are the things that need to happen. And to that example, it might be, well, I've tried to build an online business, it didn't work, I didn't sell, I've launched all these things and nothing worked, and I want to get over to here. And so like Parmees did this, and now she's all of a sudden she's launching. She's got all her time back and everything else. And what happened was we cleared three things. One, she got really clear on her dream client. Two, I told her how to connect with those dream clients. And three, and how to communicate authentically without pressure to those dream clients, so the sales
Right.
could be easy. That's the 3-step framework, if you want to call that or whatever. But those are the things that we worked on that may initiate conversation around those things that again could be coming from a service place where what do you mean by clarity or what do you mean by communicate, and that can go
Yeah.
into a conversation. But then when it gets into the depth, it's like, you know what, we're beyond the scope of me teaching you really about the communication piece, because I could just give you this one thing and you're going to go out and try that, and with all the other
Yeah.
components it's not going to really, nothing's going to work for you. So
Right.
it's
Yeah.
not that we're leading people to that, but it's like, here's the things that we actually worked on, and that
Yeah.
initiates conversation. Or I might even demonstrate part of it. Here's what
Yeah.
here's what I believe, or here's how you define a dream client, or
Yeah.
whatever it is, and then give
Yes.
them those tools or that step, and they see that a little bit of a clarity themselves. Oh, I got it. I see, and they're
Yeah.
moving the needle for themselves. So,
Exactly.
yeah,
Uh,
brilliant,
Amazing.
brilliant,
Oh,
brilliant, brilliant. Didn't come back. It's there. I can hear it. I can
yeah.
hear it rolling around. It's like, but it'll come
Well,
back
if
to me. You're
anything,
gonna get a message from me in like in a couple hours going,
exactly.
oh my God. So
I know. Either send me a message or post it in your Facebook group and tag me in it. I'd be happy to have the conversation.
you're amazing. Thank you so much for another epic Tuesday here. It's always fun with you. I don't know
Of
when
course.
we're supposed to get back together. I think we're just kind of playing it by ear now for October, right? So,
Yeah.
but I know you'll be back. So
Yep.
the audience can look forward to having you back again in another conversation that is just beyond epic. I love this.
Amazing. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. We'll see everyone soon. We'll see you next Tuesday at 7 o'clock. Thank you for being here. If you're here live, let us know. Hashtag live, hashtag replay. And just for the call to action, here's where the Facebook group is, where we have just amazing conversations, no sales pitches and all that stuff. If you are heart centered, please join us in there. Final words from Jeffrey. What did you say here? Yeah, she's
Aw,
amazing, isn't she?
thank you. I appreciate that, Jeffrey. Thank you.
We'll see you soon.